Esteemed delegates, guests, I'd like to invite you to our second panel, this session of the day. The session topic posed in the form of a question is, how do we pursue human dignity, peace, justice in times of upheaval? Before I introduce our esteemed panel, let me add to this topic. With the unprecedented upheaval with conflict and polarization in various regions and societies around the world, a rise in civilizational geopolitics, a pushback against perceived failures of the dominant liberal world order, the panel considers these topics and questions. Has the liberal order vision failed in upholding human dignity, peace, and justice? Can we offer a more compelling vision of world order rooted in human dignity, peace, and justice, reflecting of our diverse civilizations? And lastly, what should thought leaders, change makers, and leaders do? Allow me to introduce the esteemed panelists in the order that they will address us. A disclaimer, I don't do the panelists justice in these summarized bios, so I invite you to access the Wova app to see their full bios. I also invite you to please tell or talk story with them during sessions, after the sessions. We will first hear from Dr. Khairudin Aljunied. Dr. Aljunied is a tenured associate professor at the National University of Singapore. He is a senior fellow and professor, as well as the Malaysia Chair of Islam in Southeast Asia at the Aljunied Center for Muslim Christian Understanding, Georgetown University. He has held visiting full professorships at Columbia University, the USA, University of Brunei in Darussalam, and the University of Malay. Dr. Aljunied is a recognized specialist in the field of intellectual history, focusing his research on connections between Southeast Asia and global Islam. He is the author and editor of 13 books and more than 30 internationally referred articles. Lastly, in 2024 and 2025, Dr. Aljunied was recognized as one of 500 influential Muslims in the world. Dr. Aljunied's remarks will be followed by Dr. Alizaman, Dumangcag, Gamon. Dr. Gamon is an assistant professor at the Department of Fundamental and Interdisciplinary Studies, Kuliah of the Islamic Revealed Knowledge and Human Sciences at the International Islamic University of Malaysia. Dr. Alizaman is the IIT country representative for the Philippines and is actively helping private colleges empower teachers and lecturers in developing curricula based on the integration of knowledge framework. Dr. Alizaman's research primarily focuses on reviving the intellectual and religious dimensions of Islam and examining its relevance in secular contexts, particularly with Muslim communities in Southeast Asia. He advocates for the reformulation of a culture of knowledge that fosters peace, integration, and sustainable development aimed at advancing a contemporary narrative. Lastly and not least, we'll be hearing from Mrs. Desytia Nawris. Ms. Nawris is a representative of the Baha'i International Community Regional Office in Jakarta to international government organizations such as the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, as well as various government agencies, civil society organizations, and research institutes in the region. Based in Jakarta, she actively participates in various regional forums and spaces seeking to collaborate with individuals and entities concerned with the well-being of Southeast Asia, especially in advancing the cause of peace in the region. As a young woman, she is interested in promoting the role of youth and women in building a peaceful and cohesive society, both at the grassroots and at the decision-making table from local to international levels. She is actively engaged in grassroots initiatives by serving as a facilitator of youth empowerment and is engaged in various consultative spaces promoting meaningful youth and women participation. Without further ado, we'll first hear from Dr. Aljunied.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much to the chairman for welcoming me here. I'm totally jet-lagged right now, and I am sure for those who came in from Southeast Asia, we are a community of suffering today. But the topic that we are going to talk about today is very serious, and the panel is actually addressing three key questions. The first is, how do we pursue human dignity, peace, and justice in times of upheaval? And I want to talk about that first. I want to emphasize that the human or the world that we are in today is actually characterized by upheavals that are unprecedented in world history. We know of the world wars that have killed over 90 million people, a war or two wars that should have reminded us as a collective humanity that we ought to behave ourselves. But the current crisis in Gaza indicates that we have not progressed significantly in terms of achieving world peace. The late Pope Francis reminded us, indeed, if justice is not respected, conflicts will arise. Yesterday, and he was talking about Gaza, just before his untimely passing, children were bombed. This is cruelty. I want to say it because it touches my heart. Now, I want to say that before we actually talk about the pursuit for human dignity, peace, and justice, we must take a step back and ask whether the world that we are in today truly understand what it means to be a human being. And I want to say that we have not. Why do I say this? In truth, we are currently living in an age of dehumanization. And there are so many books now that are published on this topic. I would like you to refer to two of them, highly qualified academics discussing about the state of dehumanization. What do I mean by dehumanization? It is a process of perceiving, depicting, and treating individuals and groups as lesser human beings. Dehumanization justifies negative behavior. In its subtle and perhaps benign forms, it has led to social exclusion and a reluctance to engage with others in productive ways. And you see this everyday microaggressions happening in societies all over Southeast Asia, even in the world. One cause of such dehumanization, as mentioned this morning, is technology, which has bounded us together closer than ever before, but has made us lesser humans than our grandfathers and our great-grandfathers. We now talk to each other at homes through WhatsApp, not through face-to-face interaction. In its blatant and perilous forms, dehumanization has incited violence. When we convince ourselves that the person living next to us is a lesser human being, or in fact not human at all, we rationalize all sorts of atrocities, as demonstrated in the Rwandan genocide, when tribes that had lived peacefully alongside each other suddenly descended into a murderous rampage. We observe similar instances in ASEAN countries. I will not try to be politically correct today because we want to have as honest a conversation as we can, whether it's in the decades-long conflict in Timor-Leste or the ongoing crisis in the Rakhine state. We see dehumanization at play and endorsed by states and groups and militias. So to pursue human justice, peace, and human dignity in times of upheaval, we must first begin with pedagogy. What an educator does to influence learning in others about what it means to be human. And we suffer from this because teachers, educators, be it in universities, in schools, in any institutions, are actually now lesser humans than what they were before. Henry Giroux, a scholar, cultural critic, and one of the pioneers of public pedagogy and cultural studies, writes, and I quote, "Pedagogy is not about training, it is about critically educating people to be self-reflective, capable of critically addressing their relationship with others and with the larger world." So to restore human dignity, we must first reform our pedagogical approaches in our homes, because the crisis of dehumanization begins first with the family. The broken families that we have now, be it in Southeast Asia or in America, and institutions to ensure the message of shared humanity is conveyed daily. It has to start first with our children, into our society, into our community, into our nation. Then we can change the world that we are in. And this is where the past 2 days I've been talking to our brothers from Utah, and the churches that they run. They are having 22, 24 grandchildren. They have still preserved the humanity that human beings need right now. But unfortunately, we can no longer rely on global organizations such as the United Nations that has proven, to my mind, to be a sham and a shame for humanity, because despite its promise of being an international organization, it has failed to combat dehumanization and restore human dignity in a small place, an open-air prison such as Gaza. The United Nations have proven to be ineffective and, in fact, in many cases, complicit in the dehumanizing processes. Change, to me, must now begin from bottom up. And this is my message for this conference, since I have flown 14 hours from Singapore. Teachers, scholars, parents, community leaders, clerics, and influencers must all unite in the campaign to fight against dehumanization. And this fight must begin with critical pedagogy. So this is my first big point. Now, the second question that we are trying to address today is, has the liberal order failed in upholding human dignity, peace, and justice? Now, many experts on liberalism and the liberal order have noted the failure of the ideology as an organizing framework for human dignity, peace, and justice. This fact alone terrifies many Western elites and their capitalist masters, Elon Musk being one of them. We must clarify first what we mean by the liberal order, or to put it more accurately, the liberal international order. The liberal international order refers to three key pillars. The first being the enforcement of international law, which includes universal human rights. The second, the promotion of democracy, as it is defined, rather unfortunately, primarily by the West. Third is the institutionalization of global market capitalism and its various manifestations. In a liberal international order, states and related institutions at the regional or global levels cooperate in its idyllic form to achieve a hyper-globalized and inclusive economy based on the ideals of unrestrained materialism and a lasting peace, as enforced by liberal democracy and superpowers. But in its real form, and here we are talking about realpolitik, great powers actually create and manage disorders. And the great powers includes the United States as a key actor, together with other European powers who have intervened in many countries which they deem as necessary to create the conditions for liberal democracy and economic systems to flourish. Now, the liberal order has failed in the hearts of the very people who promoted the liberal order. In the books that have been written by Francis Fukuyama, Liberalism and Discontents, Fukuyama made the big point that liberalism and the liberal international order is in itself self-defeating. If anything goes as defined by the market, then violence is also permitted in order to fit with what the market needs. In another book by Patrick Dennin, Regime Change Towards a Post-Liberal Order, Patrick Dennin made the same argument by saying that the liberal order has failed to stand up to its ideals of justifying and enforcing democracies in the very countries that they said were lacking of the democracy that they deemed necessary. Now, an international relations scholar, John Mearsheimer, made a more devastating point. He said that the liberal international order not only failed, but that it can never withstand its own promises. He says this has to do with the fact that liberal democracies have been complicit in military interventions that has resulted to the loss of global peace, the interventions in the Middle East for the sake of oil, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Egypt, have all led to the rise of illiberal regimes. The ill-fated plan of turning these countries with longer histories than Western powers into liberal democracies have caused cycles of civil wars and political instability that have spread throughout the world. The liberal order has been responsible for the severe loss of human dignity. Now, what comes together with the liberal international order is actually the rise of xenophobia in and across Europe. While the US had hoped to plant democracy in many countries in the global south, European leaders now have taken a contrary direction, leaning towards authoritarianism as seen in France, Germany, the Netherlands, and other countries across Western Europe, protectionism to shield their citizens from the adverse effects of hyperglobalization only goes to show that the liberal international order is not something that Europe wants or what Europe needs right now. The actions of these leaders provide evidence that the liberal order has resulted to significant social justice, which must be addressed through state power. Now, John Mearsheimer, in his book, and I would encourage everyone to read, has also made the point that with the rise of the liberal international order, it has created the condition for the rise of China. China is not only an economic powerhouse now, it is a military juggernaut. It has refused to conform to any of the ideals of the liberal world order. It has forged alliances with numerous countries in Asia and organized markets and interact in equal terms with many countries all over the world, including Africa. China's rise has provoked several responses from the US and its allies, bringing forth the possibility of trade wars and other conflicts. The liberal order, because of the rise of China, is now a threat to global peace. Mearsheimer concludes, and I quote him here, "The time has come for the US foreign policy establishment to recognize that the liberal international order was a failed enterprise with no future. The orders that will matter for the foreseeable future are realist orders that must be fashioned to serve United States interests." So he's basically trying to say, in sum, let's throw the liberal international order into the garbage bin of history. So where does that leave us? We are in a stasis. We are in a position where, in reality, amidst all of these crises, we could actually offer a compelling vision of a new world order. And this is why in many of my speeches all over the world, wherever I travel, and in all of the books that I have published, I have underlined the importance of what I call as thought leadership. What do I mean by this? And I don't have time, and I hope that BYU will invite me again for another session where I can give a whole lecture about this. We need thought leaders, and what is a thought leader? Daniel Dresner, in his book, calls thought leaders as an intellectual evangelist. They are people who develop their own singular vision to explain the world, and then proselytize that worldview to anyone within earshot. In another book by Denise Brousseau, she says that a thought leader is defined by her or his ability to galvanize others to think of new thoughts and modify the way they have always done things, and embark on new behaviors, new paths, and new actions to transform the world. We need people to think through the world that we are in today, and this is something that I have explored in 5 of the books that I've written, 2 of which, Shapers of Islam and Islam in Malaysia, were published by Oxford University Press, Muslim Cosmopolitanism by Edinburgh, Hamka and Islam by Cornell, and the new one, Contemplating Sufism, by Blackwell. The reason why I publish all of these books in the West is because I feel that the West needs to know how the South thinks about their world. And what is the new vision of global order that I would like to throw here? Now, I call it the cosmopolitan world order. And this is where I take from thinkers such as Ulrich Beck, David Held, Ban Wong, Edward Demenshenuk. This suggests decentering European exceptionalism and superiority. We must decenter unipolarity and relegate it to the past and give more agency to global civil society. The state must no longer be regarded as a primary actor in international political organizations. Establishing a cosmopolitan world order also necessitates welcoming diversity, emphasizing cultural commonalities, shared understandings, internalizing mutual cooperation, and accepting equality in all senses of the word. It is about respect for different political systems. It is about accepting that religions have a place to play in the new world order. It is about accepting that secularism has failed to its core and it has caused so much human suffering. It is a new and hybridized ecumenical, political philosophy and system grounded in religion and also grounded in values that human beings share. So I want to propose this new idea, and how do we achieve this idea of a cosmopolitan world order? The American civil rights leader Martin Luther King once remarked, "If you want to change the world, write a book." And I want to say to those people who are listening in, let's write and write and write. Because once we populate the world with the books that will change the world that is to come, we can then initiate this new world order. My other second proposal for BYU is that we organize an international symposium on creating the cosmopolitan world order rooted in religiosity. I would love to be part of this initiative, and I hope that we could go to Provo, where the BYU main campus is. I'm sure that my good friend and esteemed professor, Professor Brett, would buy this idea, or else I will have to sell it to him again when we go out for supper later today. I just want to end by saying that we are in a dangerous world, but we are not in a world that we cannot fix. And to fix the world is to change the minds of the people out there. And to change the minds of the people out there, we need to rethink this failed liberal international order that we have inherited towards a more cosmopolitan world. It has to begin with us here in BYU, here in Hawaii, towards a new future for ourselves and for the whole of humanity. Thank you very much.
From Dr. Gamon.
I have to tie my stuff. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Greetings of peace. Aloha. Mabuhay. Just now, the concluding remark of my colleague, he emphasized about write. Write and publish. Publish or perish. So if we advocate global peace, we have to write it very clearly to change the mind of the world. Otherwise, our advocacies will be gone. So we have to write. So that is the message of my colleague here. Now, I would like to express my thanks and gratitude to BYU, as well as IKIM, for inviting me in this forum to share my humble reflections on a very important topic, obstacle to advancing human dignity, peace, and justice in times of upheaval. Now, my presentation aims to answer 4 fundamental questions that address the theme of our session: ASEAN and human dignity, pursuing peace and justice in times of upheaval. Now, I will be exploring these questions with the hope of establishing an inter-civilizational consciousness that brings us together to the shared human values. And of course, justice must be given in the theme of this, in this forum today. Now, the first question is how we should approach the concept of human dignity, peace, and justice. The first speaker has already addressed that issue, that if we refer to the liberal order, we are going to repeat the same mistake again and again. The second question is, how are these concepts understood in our contemporary society? Now, the dominance of liberal order has frustrated the world community. The third question is, what are the obstacles to advancing human dignity? And this is the main theme of my presentation. Rather than pursuing how to pursue justice, then I will be highlighting what are the obstacles. And finally, how we should respond to these obstacles. And this is very important because the ASEAN have provided us a very holistic, shall I say, response to the problem, but unfortunately, it is always undermined by world communities. Now, concept of human dignity, peace, and justice have been explored across various traditions. Yet, there is a need for a synthesis, a synergy that brings Eastern and Western intellectual heritages, especially in the ASEAN societies, where these ideals face challenges from inequality, conflict, and moral uncertainty. In today's diverse world, justice must be viewed pragmatically, focusing on real-world issues rather than relying on flawed theory and practices, conjectures, as it is contained in the liberal order. Thought leaders, as suggested by Prof. Aljunied, we have to understand who are these thought leaders, the scholars. And these scholars should embrace trans-epistemic dialogue, fostering pluralism and ethical engagement over single hegemonic models. While secular liberal paradigms to human dignity have contributed significantly to the discourse, I strongly believe that engaging ASEAN and Islamic traditions offer holistic, transformative framework for reimagining justice and dignity. I firmly believe that any initiative aimed at offering tangible, practical, and sustainable solutions for pursuing peace and justice can only succeed if proper diagnosis is conducted by truthful social scientists. And what do I mean by these truthful social scientists? They are the real peace builders who deeply understand the root causes of the crisis and are able to offer genuine solutions. So we are talking about a genuine solutions here, that we don't want to repeat mistakes of the past. We have to learn from the past. And whatever mistakes that they have committed, we are not here to repeat those mistakes. Because of the presence of clash of epistemologies within the dominant discourse, there is a growing call for inter-civilizational dialogue that includes Islamic perspectives, which see dignity as divinely endowed human quality. And I think Brother Shafiq, Dr. Shafiq has already mentioned this, that this human dignity is the returning back to the human fitra, or we call it the inherent nature of man. And that is actually the problem, that we are being detached to that inherent nature of man, and the failure of liberal order of understanding what human being is all about. Now, considering the dominance of liberal perspective, the challenge is not choosing between modernity and tradition, but the need to have a proper methodology in integrating both liberal and Islamic and other epistemology to preserve our moral compass and shared identities. So I am emphasizing here the importance of proper methodology, because I believe Islam has already been perfected in the Quran, and also the Christianity, you have what they call is the sacred text, and it is there. But the problem to us is that how do you extract a proper methodology, right, in our present time, so that that approach and methodology in solving the problem is practical and doable and to be accepted by the world community. Now, in my paper that I have presented, I have submitted 1 week before, a few days before my arrival in Hawaii, which I believe I need to, let us say, rewrite again and to reintegrate some of the comments, some of the reflections of few speakers. I have consistently emphasized the importance of embracing epistemological integration. So why I have to emphasize this epistemological integration? Because if there is an integrated knowledge which is actually derived from various traditions, then I think we can narrow down the gap between two opposing epistemologies. Such knowledge is crucial in finding the common grounds to pursue a meaningful civilizational interaction, rather than intensifying the negative impact of the discourse of clash of civilization that has changed the geopolitical landscape of the world today. And this clash of civilization, I think we have to change the meaning of that clash of civilization, why we cannot emphasize integrated epistemologies rather than looking at a kind of assumption that once you are with the Muslim community, it is inevitable that you are going to have a clash with them. You are going to have a conflict with them. We have to change the mindset, and that is the emphasis of Prof. Khairudin, that we need to change the mindset of the global community. Now, for example, the question, are today's conflict thoroughly religious? We have to contemplate in that. Are we trying to say that all the problems is related to religion? Or are they symptoms of deeper social and political issues? Answering this question requires a deep understanding of the root causes and appropriate solutions. Otherwise, such problem will keep reoccurring within the social system. Now, this highlights, oh my goodness, okay. I haven't even started some of the points, and you are giving me already the 5 minutes. Now, let me push to, just want to go to the most important points that I feel that we need to contemplate because that is really the core of our problem. But anyway, since I have submitted the paper, you can go through on that. I have highlighted 11 obstacles, and few of those obstacles have already been addressed by the first panel, like, for example, corruption of knowledge, the importance of something to do with politicization of religion, as well as the failure of AI to provide the moral compass for the youth of today. Now, I want to look at very important thing that we need to go back, and this is the 12 obstacles that I believe potentially impeding the global initiative to advance human dignity, its meaning and purpose, is the entrenched historical ignorance or amnesia. Historical amnesia or historical ignorance surrounding the knowledge culture of Islam. When I say knowledge culture of Islam, it is ilmu budaya Islam. And it's very important to understand that not many of us here have a clear understanding of this knowledge culture. Now, this amnesia deals on that, the failure to understand the knowledge culture of Islam and its civilizational contributions. Now, regrettably, what is often emphasized in the discussion of expansion of Islamic civilization and its historical interaction with other civilizations is its military strength, particularly the use of the sword as its association with coercive method. Now, this collective forgetfulness overlooks the religious and intellectual tradition of Islam that enrich other intellectual traditions, nourishing cultural vitality and social harmony across its extended territories through a knowledge culture rooted in metaphysical and cosmological foundation, which discipline the use of reason under the guidance of revelation. So I think if we can address this kind of historical injustices against the knowledge culture of Islam, and I think the global initiative for peace can be fostered and can be enriched by leveraging the rich intellectual legacy of Islam. Now, this amnesia has corroded the moral fabric of societies, and this lead to a fragmentation of knowledge. The most devastating consequence of this historical and epistemic dislocation is the growing disengagement between education and wisdom. Because not everything that you learn in the university is a knowledge. And not all knowledge constitute wisdom. Now, another is about between power and purpose, and between reform and religion. So these are the three things that, the result of this amnesia. This intellectual vacuum has intensified identity struggles, especially in the case of the South, Muslim communities in the South, Philippines, Myanmar, as well as Mindanao. Okay, now, since I have only 1 minute, let me just go, let us say, way forward. I am here to promote epistemological dialogue and integration. Reform education through integrated worldviews. Institutionalized, faith-sensitive policy mechanism. Fourth, center Tawhid, or unity of knowledge, as a framework for social healing and conflict resolution. The world community has to recognize what is this Tawhidic framework, or the unity of knowledge that is being shared by the entire global community. Empower public intellectuals and community leaders. We have to empower. How do we empower? It must be a holistic empowerment. It is not just empowering human based on what they need economically, as an economic being. We need to understand that human is a body. Human is a spirit. Likewise, civilization has a body. Civilization has a spirit. If we don't fulfill these components of civilization, we are going to fail. And we have to empower people. And lastly, revive civilizational memory as a resource for the future. Learn from the history and the great civilizations, how they succeed and how they fail. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Gamon, for your remarks. A reminder that if you'd like a copy or to access to his paper, to reach out to our organizers for that. Last and not least, we'll now hear from Ms. Nawris.
To be honest, I feel so nervous now. So please bear with me. And yeah, first of all, I would like to convey my sincere thanks and gratitude to the Almighty God, and also to BYU to invite me to be part of this important conversation together with all distinguished participants, scholars, religious leaders, and also the experts and practitioners. It's really a privilege for me. And especially in this very distinguished panel with the distinguished speakers, right, on the right and left of my side, I will share part of my reflection. I'm not a scholar, I'm not a lecturer, but then from my work, I would like to share my humble reflection on this very important topic, like how do we pursue human dignity, peace, and justice in times of upheaval. And I think when we talk about human dignity, usually dignity will equals to like how much we earn, like the degree that we have. And in the normal condition, it will be easy for us to be happy. But there is this very intriguing quotation that I keep reflecting on. If one be happy and contented in the time of trouble, hardship, prevailing disease, that is proof of nobility. So in this very intriguing quotation, it means that, like, what is actually nobility? What's the nobility of human being? Is it like the income, the status, like the physical or material status that we have in a society? So let me start my sharing with a perspective about within the context of ever-changing social reality where we are living in. And I hope this can shape our understanding about like the constant upheaval or crisis that face humanity. And I think Prof. Khairudin has mentioned, and also Prof. Alizaman has mentioned about like how much crisis that has been experienced by humanity. So I'll share our history, its course and the direction, the nature of human interconnectedness and interdependence, and how can we draw on the role of religion, and last but not least, about like who we are as ASEAN community and its interconnected world. So in our history, like mentioned earlier, that humanity has been exercising a power struggles and between territories. Early on, we learned what is regarded as the First World War. And with the unprecedented scale of ferocity and the bloodshed, it becomes a long-standing memory to every succeeding generation. But then the question from Professor Alizaman just now was like really intriguing to me, like, what do we remember from the history? That's actually a very important question. So, but then when we look at the history from the World War I, World War II, and then Cold War, these series of upheavals, we see like there are also the manifestation of humanity's thirst towards peace and justice in the world. And we see like the establishment of League of Nations and then United Nations, no matter how limited it is. We should, I think in my personal reflection, we learned that there is a longing from humanity towards a better future, towards a better, peaceful society. And it is in itself is an evidence humanity's inclination, like human nobility, that their inclination towards something that is greater than them. But then in today's challenges, in this 21st century, with the challenges that we just heard also from today and also yesterday, we see that many dominant currents in the society everywhere are pushing people apart instead of drawing people together. And if we look at the global poverty, the most extreme form has decreased, but we also see at the same time the enrichment of very small groups with extreme wealth. So this is a condition that fuels fundamental instability in the world affairs. And also, like regarding the world order, we also see that there is this constant struggle of power between individual, governing institution, and society. And it has led to the decline of public trust. So I think like earlier, Prof. Khairudin mentioned that what is the new compelling world order that is fit to humanity's aspiration? That's actually a very important question. So, but if we look at one of the reflections from this history is that maybe we can look at this through the lens of humanity is at the stage approaching the unification of human race. The more we know now and realize that we are only but the people of one human homeland. Like this planet Earth is our homeland. And in this one homeland, we take and give, no matter how humble our contribution is. So then, from the recent health crisis, for example, we see like how this nature of interdependence are so much in our society. In the global health issues of the pandemic show us how much more evident that society's collective strength is dependent on the unity it can manifest in action from the international stage to the grassroots. So then, how can we move forward with the more and more complex issues in our society? What kind of response that is appropriate? So one analogy that what I would like to share today is about the nature of human interconnectedness and interdependence. So let's consider human society as a human body with a complex system of cells and tissues. They have they're distinct in their unique shape and capacities, yet they work together in closely integrated and harmonious processes. And in this case, cells and tissues and organs are working beyond their narrow purpose of their own existence. So if we can imagine if one cell is very egocentric, it is like the cell of cancer, it can ruin the whole body. So then it is also what is happening in human society today. The health and progress of every cell, tissues, and organ is contingent upon the whole health of the body. So too, that the prosperity of every individual, every family, every community or nation is contingent upon the well-being of the entire human population. And if we look at this nature of cells and tissues and organs, we see that cooperation is the only way of interaction. But what is unfortunate in our society today, if we compare this analogy to what is happening in the world today, what is very prevalent in society, unfortunately, instead of cooperation, we see like different scale of competition. Individual competition, institutional competition, and the competition between countries. And this nature competition is actually ignoring the extraordinary potential of the human spirit. But then how can we tap on the power of human spirit? I think that's the question also. So the next thing that I want to share is how can we tap on the potential of human spirit by drawing on the role of religion. And we all agree from yesterday's sharing also, we hear that religion should be the driving force for the peaceful and sustainable future. But yes, of course, there are so many questions ahead of us. One thing that we learn from religion is like the nobility of human being. Like the purpose of our creation is actually to work for the betterment of the world and to live together in concord, in harmony. And this is our merit is lying in the service and virtue and not in the pageantry of wealth and riches. It is actually what we learn from the teachings. Every revelation that's sent by God is actually to teach us about the value of service to others. Secondly is about the religion itself. Like, what is the role of religion? Despite the fact that religion is now being perceived as the source of problem, but then how can we revive this spirit about like religion can actually be part of the solution? Yeah, how can we together find out the role of religion in our society? So then the challenge is really to translate which is written in the revelation into reality and action. And I think this is the question from yesterday's discussion also. Like, there are two different things, like the standards set by the revelation and the capacity of humanity to really put that into action. So then how can we bring this spirit of religion as the cause of love and unity into the society? How can we be committed to the prosperity of all people? How can we eschew partisanship and center of our worldly power? And how can we transcend differences and harmonizing perspectives, among other things that we want to learn from the religion? And lastly, from religion, is I want to share that we should consider religion and science as the two systems of knowledge. So this religion and science is the two systems of knowledge upon which man's intelligence can soar. And yes, of course, from the science, we learn about the method, how to understand laws and processes governing physical reality, but to a certain degree, the working of society also need the insights of religion, which is to provide understanding relating to the deepest question of human motivation and purpose. So, and I think this is the constant question. So now, how can we, with this all conviction, the question is that as the ASEAN community, and of course, like global community, we are actually, with this human body analogy, we are definitely interconnected to one another. So then moving forward, we need to also ask constantly, like, what is the type of the societies that we seek to build? So if we seek to build a peaceful and inclusive society, then what are some of the values that can guide us, that can animate this process of building a peaceful and cohesive society? And we need to derive these values from traditions, science, religion, culture. And some of the values that I identified is the values of interdependence, unity in diversity, solidarity, and mutual trust. And I think this is the building block for the stable social order. And secondly, because more and more the conversation now about the human dignity is related to economic progress, perhaps to think about economic progress in a new light, like what it means for economy to reflect what is central to human purpose and motivation. So how to redefine GDP, for example, that is reflecting our human nature, and how can this spirit be reflected in the way how multilateralism function, how nations collaborate to one another to advance economic progress. And lastly, because we see that there should be a new pattern of relationship, I think the New World Order should be based on the pattern of relationship that is look like the cells and tissues and organ of one human body, that who cooperate one another. So here, I would suggest that the collaboration between the three protagonists, which is individuals, communities, and institutions in the society, should be shaped by the spirit of oneness, that we are just one human family in one common human homeland. And with that, we should have an inclusive engagement with all stakeholders. And there should be more and more consultative process between the government and non-government, so then we can come up with a well-informed policy, and it will lead to the sustainable progress. And last but not least, how can this happen is actually to decentralize the knowledge and programs, because knowledge is important. I think we all agree today, few of us also emphasize about the knowledge. So how can this decentralization of knowledge reach everyone? Because knowledge is actually the means where the potentials of human being can be tapped on. So with that, I will end my sharing. Thank you so much for your attention.